Hello and welcome to the global reveal of the MXE product launch here. My name is John O'Bailey. I'll be taking you through the MXE. I'm the global product manager for the product, and I will start the presentation today. I hope you're all well. I hope that this is reaching as many people as possible here. It's a very exciting product for us at Dynacord, and we're very, very proud to have it. So without further ado, this is the MXE series of matrix mix engines. As I said, I'm the global product manager, John O'Bailey, and I think the best way to really start explaining the MXE is to explain where we've come from in terms of DSP specifications. And on screen, you'll see that there's a bunch of products here available, and they all have dynamic range specifications from the BSS through to DBX, some Dynacord products, Dolby Lake processors, and also the PV Media Matrix X-Frame. They have a reasonable, I use dynamic range here, or signal to noise, as a good benchmark to really start talking about these products, because they have you know, quite reasonable DSP specifications for their time. Because most of you are now thinking, these are really old products, Jono. Why are you talking about really old products? And you're right, these products are actually all EOL. And they're not around anymore. They haven't been around since the early 90s to 2000s. And these are the specifications for that time. So even the PV Media Matrix, which is one of the first matrices, was 1993. It first came out with 107 dB of signal to noise. So we're talking about yesteryear, multiple generations ago. So where are we today in terms of our DSP and dynamic range specs? Well, current products are not much further along, unfortunately. They are really in 108 dB sort of range, most of them, up to about 110 dB. They suffer from some latency issues and things like that. But really, these products haven't progressed very far. And it's very interesting to try to understand why that is. And why that is because the market for these products, these DSP matrix, have shifted across from professional audio, where it used to be, across into conferencing systems, and the major brands have focused now on video conferencing, corporate communication markets, huddle rooms, things like that. The information that you're seeing on screen is just the landing pages. These are, if you type in the brand name with a .com after it, these are the pages that you land at with these brands, and they are all very, very much focused on the corporate boardroom type of markets. Now, this is very interesting to me and to us, is that because it's focused on here, they don't really need to run anything more than a few ceiling speakers, some Bluetooth headsets, perhaps some Bluetooth speakers. Not very much. You don't really need much dynamic range. Hence, that answers the question, why have the audio specifications not really progressed? Therefore, these applications don't need the high-end audio quality, and some of them don't actually even bother to publish their system specification, their audio specifications. So their cut sheets don't actually have any audio specs in them whatsoever. They have a very, very broad generic term sheet, and really don't go into any of the audio specifications. Now, these lower requirements are fine in those applications, absolutely fine, because you don't need that much dynamic range, or you're not going to hear any big difference through some low-cost ceiling speakers. But it means that they don't have to update or use the best quality components for AD converters or the latest, more expensive products in their systems to generate what they actually need to do. So that just gives you an idea of where these customers have actually focused upon and where we're focusing on, because we think that there's a vacuum in that market to provide high-end audio processing and high-quality audio processing to a broader reach of people. So live productions, bars and clubs, performing arts centers, and houses of worship. Sporting venues, all really require the highest end audio specifications possible. So where are we with MXE5? MXE5 develops 118 dB of dynamic range. Very, very clean product with thermoharmonic distortion. Sample rate is also at 96, which is a rarity in products like this. The latency is sensationally low. So most of the products that you actually saw there have latencies up to 3 milliseconds, some above, and that's sort of over 12 times the length of time that it takes in terms of the latency. And obviously that doubles up within a system, becomes a bigger problem in live applications and live markets as well. So the audio processing here is extremely good, 32 40-bit floating point DSP. It's a 24 by 24 matrix with Dante already on board, so there's no need for any other network cards or any other accessories like that. The product is out of the box, fully Dante OCA capable, with 12 inputs, 8 outputs, all mic line, very, very high quality with that. In terms of the features on the rear panel, it's Euroblock connectors, as you can see there, Dante OCA ports for primary and secondary. You also have the possibilities of glitch-free, transparent RSTP modes for redundancy. There's a separate audio network control port for multicast filtering. So what that is that you can ideally put in a Wi-Fi router off a Wi-Fi control and filter off all of the excess data so you don't overwhelm the network for the system. The 8 GPIO analog inputs and outputs, we'll actually look at some of those configurations shortly. There's 10 volts for supervised short circuit protection output. So, definitely enough power to run relays and things like that. There's 48 volt phantom power. The MXE itself is a system manager and OCA controller. We'll have a look at some of how that works as well. And there's also a plugin for the QSYS system integration. And in terms of the features internally, again, we'll have a look at this, but there's a lot of features in there. There's crosspoints, duckers, noise gates, all of the things that you would normally expect. And then there's even more to come in future software updates. Over the next couple of years, we're going to increase this to a fixed architecture to completely open architecture configuration. There'll be a virtual professional mixing with multi-effects built in, task engines, auto mixing, room combining, echo cancellation, all of those things that you would expect. In terms of the accessories for the system, the TPC1 touch control panel is a 5.7-inch touch panel with a full HD display brightness, 450 nits. So it's definitely very bright. Also, it's a proximity sensor that allows you to walk in and out and actually lights up on proximity. It's the universal fit for this, and it's a very slim design and a universal fit. So EU, UK, and US style wall mountings are all completely compatible. For our friends in Australia, I'm not entirely sure if it fits that, but I think it's pretty close, or should actually do that as well. The PoE and aux power options, slim design, and it's freely configurable in SONICUE. I put in there theft-resistant locking because it's worthy of noting that there are some touchscreens out there that you can just walk up and actually pull the unit off the wall quite easily, but we do have a theft-resistant system built into the design. The touch panel connector panel is for professional applications, so it's also designed for touring applications, and you can see there it has XLR connectors, Ethercons to use as an option there, but it also finds its way into a lot of control rooms in installations as well. So if you have a look at the front panel there, you can see, and it's worth noting that I have put down there that it's also capable with future MXE series releases. We do have a number of products on their way here that are compatible with this system. So I won't be going into that too much today, but MXE is a series, not just a singular product. So in terms of SONICUE, SONICUE is the system that we use to control and configure the MXE. And I would like to invite Christian Gluck, who is the product manager for SONICUE, to join me and discussing some of the software packages. Christian, if you could join.
Yeah, welcome. Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
Yeah, so SONICUE is our control, our smooth way of working to drive sound, and of course, MXE is a new piece in this ecosystem. And I would say, Jono, if you go ahead, let's take a quick look.
Let's have a first. We'll start looking at the channel strip here in the fixed architecture, which is worth noting. So we'll work our way through the channel strip. So obviously you have a gain, and then you have areas that you can turn 48 volts on and off, adjust the gain. But it's also got pilot detection. So your pilot tone detection on your inputs. So the whole unit becomes very, very capable in terms of supervision of loudspeaker systems for larger installations like Stadia, things like this. That's, yeah, an excellent feature and a very professional feature of the product. Moving on, the ability to have 24 analog or plus 24 Dante channels are available to you on screen. It's a simple crosspoint to select where your input patch goes here. It's also worth mentioning that there is a direct access to the Dante controller from this screen, which makes life much easier. Rather than having to leave an application to do the Dante control and come back in, you actually have the access already built in. Going through the dynamics on screen, there is a lot in here. We're not going to go through all of it, but obviously all of this actually has web-based training, and our LMS system is online right now that you can do training and get more information about not only the product, not only SONICUE, but also system designs and things like that. So it's definitely worth mentioning that that's definitely available right now. Going into the zone mixer. Now the zone mixer is a unique feature of MXE. It allows you to have a pre-configured mixer setup and a very, very usable, definable setup within SONICUE. So from the input patch that was before, you can see your inputs. You can select those inputs to an output. And then once you select your zone output type, then it will generate the speaker processing area within the channel strip. So this zone processing area will then allow you to have 2 ways, 3 ways, and or do an auto configuration of that. Once we have the zone mixer on screen, the zone mixer is a very easily controllable surface to use. Up the top here, just make a note, that this is the navigation area. So you click on the lighter shaded area and then move that backwards and forwards with your mouse if you wanted to. It really allows you to go through all of the channels within there and then select which zone you want to actually control as well. The zone arrows here for macro control or micro control in case you don't want to use the fader. If you've got fat fingers, things like that on touch screens makes it much easier and really, really fluid. Is there anything you want to add there, Christian?
I just want to make clear that what we see, what you described, the channel strip with the 24 inputs and the 24 channel zone mixer, the output and 8 channels of speaker processing, that's what we call a fixed overlay, which is what we start at launch with. Down the road, you mentioned before, there are things like auto mixers, ANC, and so on. These will be like, you might know it from predecessor, like an N8000, where we will have a free DSP config to basically build your own DSP. But right now, what we're looking at is that this is what we will have at start.
Yep, it's definitely an important point to note that this product is actually in its first stages of development. So when we say that, we mean that it's a final stage development, but it's going to continue on from here and get more and more powerful for the installer and for the user in terms of features and also accessories. One of those features is the TPC1 touchscreen panel. So we're going to show you how easy it is to configure, because we mentioned free configuration earlier, but we really want to step you through a setup on screen just to show you, how simple and what's actually possible here for it. So if we go into SONICUE, we open up a panel. We can collect a flyout, an empty flyout, put it on screen, open Designer, and then from here we can select the type of size of the product. Now we can do a TPC1 size or multiple other sizes are certainly available.
Yeah, and this is maybe worth to mention that it's the same panel designer, whether this is a panel for PC application, somebody, an operator in a stadium, or this is a panel that should run on the touch panel controller. It's this, there's one way of building these custom controls, and all have the same liberty. So there is no, let's say, limited feature set or whatsoever just because it's a touch panel. And what we're doing here is just to show you, let's say we're creating now a panel for somebody, an operator in a stadium. So we add a text block that we know what it is. In this case, it's our panel demo. We can change the font size and then bring in colors. So as a next thing, what we want to do is add some controls from our zone mixer. So here's our zone mixer that we just use for setup. And basically, we just grab that first channel for the announcer microphone channel and bring it on our control panel. We grab the next channel. And in a preview, so that was the design mode, this is a preview mode, you see that actually, yes, if the panel is moved, we're really working on that channel in our zone mixer. So there was not really much work to be done other than grabbing this control and bringing it onto the panel. Now we might want to add some additional stuff so we can now still modify what we have. So we are not tied to what we have in the flyouts on the normal SONICUE. You can change backgrounds, colors, sizes. You can also adjust the entire page. Let's say you want some navigation or whatsoever, and you need these controls, but a little bit smaller, just grab them and size them. So, or you need one additional button to, let's assume, let's bring in a power button, you know, to turn on and off the MXE. Let's call this thing button, power, sorry. What color do we want on this button? We want green, and what shall it do on the matrix? Power status, that's what it's doing. Yeah, and just to show you that this is not just a button, it actually works. As soon as we press the power button, this is definitely powering on and off our MXE5. So lots of possibilities that are designed to be achievable with the ease of use. That is the whole theme for the SONICUE part. So taking the complexity to the absolute minimum that you can concentrate what's possible.
Yeah.
So
and here we're just replicating. Yeah, so we're replicating the panel across to just show you that you can easily, you don't have to build the template every single time. You can actually just reuse quite a lot and then make modifications and changes very, very easily, quickly. So add another microphone. Not an issue. Spread out those faders across the surface. You can see that the preview all works perfectly versus the SONICUE.
Yeah, so this is now a control panel that you can operate from the surface of SONICUE, but in most cases, you don't want actually the people in place, operators or whatsoever, to be able to have access to the entire system. So there is one thing that comes with SONICUE and comes with the next release, together with the MXE, which will be the option to have a dedicated viewer only, which will only run and connect to what has been programmed for that user. Yeah. So here in this case, just to show you the paging of these things. So, and this also is valid for the touch panel controller, by the way. So you can have not just the one page to control something, you could have multiple pages. So we're just adding a button here or actually two buttons that we want to use for navigation. So instead of toggle, we turn them to navigate. And give them names. So one is stadium, and the second one, let's call it suites, which is a second page for this control panel. Yeah, and yeah, this can have a completely different content. And just to show you what kind of flexibility we already have at the first release on this second page.
Yeah, the second page for stadium and suites is just to be able to do 2-zone control here. So the stadium can have a certain mix, and then suites can have a sub-mix of that. And this could be located, this wall panel can be located in the control room separately from the console or anything else as just an overriding system control or an easy user control area. So very, very useful to be able to set up multiple pages very quickly and very cleanly. Sorry.
Okay, so we are at our second page, and
yeah, also there we can actually add logos, background screens, nice areas into the background.
Which could be just a background, but for a control panel on a computer, this could also be the footprint of your venue. Yeah,
yeah,
and using it as a visual control for the guys to see, okay, in which zone they are actually changing a level or whatever. And this is starting at SONICUE 1.2. We will have this viewer app. Yeah, so if you start the viewer app, it will connect with the devices and show you the controls that you have created on that app. It is not the SONICUE designer, so you can't even do anything else but control what the system designer, the integrator, has created in that application.
Yep.
Also in SONICUE, while we're just talking about it, is the GPIO control. This was a feature that we did kind of miss on the first one for the amps, but now with the MXE5, also a system controller really needed. So what you see, this is pretty straightforward on the pages where you say, okay, which faults do we want to have, for example, as a collected error state? Yeah, and here right now we say, okay, panel unlock. Now we're not so much interested. Is it stuck, Jono? I don't see.
No, it's finished the thing, so I can replay that if you want.
Okay. Anyway,
yeah, but
that's the thing. If you are apart, I mean, you know, so I mean, Jono sitting in Australia, me sitting in Germany. There's a long cable in between. Yeah. Okay.
So this shows you again.
Second try. Let's see if we got any progress. Otherwise, we move on. So, yeah, this is the
panel unlock. You can see that the error state actually got generated and then recorded from the MXE system and logged in there. And as you turn it off the IPX, then obviously it clears.
So the MXE, this is really the story here. MXE acts as a system controller, so it can supervise your system with the amplifier. So all you really need to do is take a look at the MXE. Yeah, this might be the GPO where this one LED is off, which tells you if the entire stadium is good or not, for example.
And that can be obviously linked to because you have, you know, in some cases tens of or 100 plus amplifiers within a system, and then it just logs to the one central location. So it makes it much easier. If you want to use that on the panel, you can do that as well. Yeah.
And for these, we have a really nice way, all new way. I think, Jono, you're gonna.
Yep.
continue to make all these controls, to make these system logic of that for these controllers. Because so first we can set whether we want to use analog, digital, in or outs on our GPIO. So there is 8 on the MXE and there is 3 on every IPX amplifier. In our case, we're using the first 2-1 in this example. So we have that the GPIOs, and if we go to setting where we have been in the DSP, we can go to the OCA controller block, and there it's a logic job that we want to do. And the first thing that you add is basically a name tag for that job. I mean, you don't have to do it, but it's highly recommended. And what we want to do is we want to recall user preset number 1 with GPI 1 of the MXE. So it's the head device is our MXE, and we bring in, yes, it should be the GPI pin 1 that we use to trigger the event. And what we want to do is have this amp1. This is the label. If we would have called this amplifier ballroom, then it would show up with ballroom, but we called it just amp1. And what we want to go is change it to user preset 1. Now, this is if it's 1 amp. In our case, we have 4 amplifiers, let's say, in our system. So we are adding now a device that can actually handle a list. So we don't need to duplicate anything else. We're just saying, okay, when this happens on top, these 3 amps, oh, we need a 4th one. Okay, so we will add just a 4th one, and you can add up to 100 in this block. And yeah, this will all happen. Now, a really cool feature, we want to do a second job, which is all the same, but just using a different pin to switch to user preset 2. So all we need to do is copy, paste, select a different pin, select the different user preset, press the deploy button, and all the logic is now in the system. So what looks like a little puzzle for children actually turns out to be a very, very powerful, and super efficient tool to get your system logic running.
Yeah, and multiple system logic. It's not just a singular line. You can control multiple options very, very quickly and easily and not have to replicate that over and over using the OCA controller. Very, very powerful to have that inside the GUI, and definitely a very powerful tool to use in the future. From there,
I think we've.
Yep.
Okay. We've been there.
Okay. So in terms of the applications for MXE moving forward, so we have houses of worship, performing arts centers, sports, and even live applications. And again, the MXE is really designed on performance applications, although it has a very, very powerful control as well. So we're looking here at a simple structure with some analog connections to our L series and C series amplifiers. The MXE5 in this particular case is being used as an input mixer. So the mixing functionality is being used to control those 3 separate areas, perhaps with a singular touchscreen. So we could have made the touchscreen into 3 tabs across the top of the page, so we could go to any of those 3 zones and use the mixer just straight off the tab. Perhaps there's somebody who comes in and wants some more control than that, then they can use their wireless, either a PC or in the future, perhaps a tablet, to control any kind of input. So I've put 3 microphones in there, but it also could be background music, obviously, or anything in that. So systems like this, traditional houses of worship or Congress or community halls or things like that, becomes a very, very powerful unit where previously you would have to have a mixing console somewhere in the system. This actually gets you around that and presents you a very elegant solution. Anything you want to add to that, Christian?
No, I think this is pretty straightforward. So maybe we look into
the next
larger
one.
systems. That
Yep.
was the warm-up.
So that was the warm-up. So when we talk about larger systems, in larger systems, the system design of the at the moment the zone mixer, and in the future the full professional mixer that's included inside MXE, doesn't necessarily do away with a front of house console in big performances. You're not going to do 48, 96 channels of inputs from a tablet. So therefore, we do still need to have connection via Dante, for instance, for a mixing console to come in to the unit. But also you could have, if those instances, let's say it's a church, midweek, they don't want to use the front of house console because there's only a few people, but they still want to use the main auditorium. It's quite simple. They might have a guitar or a piano or something on stage and a couple of vocal mics and a lectern or a headset mic. That can be plugged directly to the MXE, and the MXE's mixing functionality can certainly play a part at that point. And then on the Sundays during the main service, then they can actually expand that out, use the full console.
And I think this is the kind of application that we see. I mean, not just here performing outside of worship. Wherever you have a venue that is originally designed for a handful of events, having a powerful system, but it is in multi-purpose usage. So there is other user groups, so to say. If it's a, let's say, house of worship, it could be the praise band that's rehearsing. Yeah, it could be some kind of special event, and because of the complexity of the digital consoles and everything, they don't get the sound guy in for all these things. So they need a system that has, you can say, a two-level usage. Yeah, yes, it's the main service. There you have the sound crew and the people operating the console. But most of the time during the week, there are non-technical people that somehow have to deal with the system, and that's where the MXE comes in place as a, you can say, being able to simplify the front end to the user by making complex things very easy to appear. And as I said, whether this is a touch panel or even a dedicated control panel, yeah, for the worship leader who gets a few faders, a few buttons, and so he can mix what he needs during the rehearsal, but he will not mess up with the rest of the sound system. So that's really what we see going forward more and more in these places. And the good thing is that MXE5 is playing in both worlds, because it has the performance feature set for the Pro Sound system, but also the flexibility to be, let's say, simplified in user control for the non-tech guys.
Exactly. And if you do need to combine it with a QSYS ecosystem, you can do that. We have a QSYS plugin that allows you to do that. And eventually, pretty soon, we'll have a Crestron as well. So for those two systems, to integrate across, not an issue. If you want to expand this system, if we look at the expanding this, there's a possibility that you can now use another MXE, and you could use this to do monitors for on stage. So whether that's in-ear monitors or directly to the monitor amplifiers, you can run the monitors on stage, and then the musicians themselves could have control via either a TPC or eventually, when we do Android and iOS compatibility for the app, we will be able to do a bring your own device situation where they can still control their mix or submix from the main console directly via MXE, which is a very powerful capabilities to be able to do that. Moving on into the sports atmosphere, if we look at a stadium, we've done quite a few stadiums recently. I know we have a few stadiums which MXE has already been specified for and is about to be installed. There's one here in Australia, and there's a couple in the US, and I believe there's some others in Europe as well. But so stadiums are a great application for MXE, high quality audio, great control, all of those things. So if we look at the back of house here is plugged into some analog amplifiers. These are our DSA CPS range of amplifiers, and then in each individual suite or area could have their own wall panel for individual control to those, or they could be centralized just to one panel, and then you could just have tabs from a control box to control that. Moving on to the control room itself, usually you have a console, but here we're using the CP MXE control network panel because you might need to plug different things in and out from the control room. Definitely the panel comes into its own situation, as well as a wall controller for when you don't need to use the front of house desk, or you want just a quick individual control over a particular grandstand or a particular area within. And then finally, the main bowl obviously is networked to a whole range of amplifiers that are then monitored back, like what we were saying before, to the MXE, so that you can really get your full system control happening there. All good, Christian?
Yep.
Cool.
I think you covered it all.
Yep. So high quality audio, just in summary for the MXE series, high quality audio is key and essential. 96 kilohertz sample rate for this level of product is unheard of. There's not very many units that are actually running proper 96 at the moment, especially in matrix configurations. The industry's lowest latencies, so 0.22 of a millisecond. Other people are around about 3 milliseconds. Outstanding signal to noise and THD specs. The advanced mixing functionality is very unique on this product. The zone mixer that you saw, and then we will also be having a professional virtual mixer. And that'll have its own multi-effects unit built in. So reverb, and I know that that's very popular for even the mosque markets through the Middle East, and it would be a great unit for that. Complete package solution here. There's no need for cards. It's got Dante and OCA already on board. Everything is integrated. It's a real complete package. And there's more applications than what you were previously able to do with a lot of these functions, because a lot of the market, as I was saying at the very beginning, has low audio specifications because it's not really their market to be involved with, and it really leaves a big vacuum for a lot of us to look at really high quality audio in the signal chain. So at the end of the day, the big reveal on price. The question that everybody's asking, so without further ado, the MXE5 is the list price. So that's a retail list price, whatever you want to call it, is 2,890 euros, or it's 3,190 USD. The TPC list price is 990 euros, 1,090 USD. The control panel, it will be available at the end of the year, and we'll get information out to you at that time when that becomes available. So that is coming shortly. So I think it's time for questions and answers. So if there's any questions from people,
yeah, there are some questions already in the chat. So if you haven't started, please feel free now, start typing. So I'll grab the first one because I just happen to have the chat open. First question is or will be the MXE5 Omnio compatible with all other Bosch Omnio products like Gisentis conference system and Omnio to Dante Gateway? I can tell you that the MXE5 is using the latest CAP reference design implementation for Omnio, and we already have one project where I know that an MXE5 is used with a Dicentis system to basically create submixes of encrypted audio channels, because that comes with the part which we are using. And maybe for those who are not familiar with the rest of Omnio, for the ProSound world, Omnio usually translates into Dante plus OCA. That's what we use on the ProSound side. But Omnio has more to that, and one of this more to that is also encrypted audio capability, encrypted control capability, and the Dicentis is using that. You can imagine conference system used in parliaments, yeah, that's a requirement. And yes, it can be used for that. Now, there is, of course, something that needs to be known that, of course, we are not providing, let's say, interfaces from our side. We don't get into a Dynacord controller whatsoever. So the hardware works with these things. How you utilize it and these functionalities, that needs to come then from, in this case, the Dynacord system. Technically, we've already seen in a demo, it will work. So, and I know there's a project behind and it's large enough to keep the ball rolling.
I'll answer the next question. The question from Jeff in Sydney is that can the network audio span multiple subnets? The answer to that is yes. That it can span. It's a layer 3 as well as the control from the Omnio system. That's the OCA and Dante. You can span multiple subnets from that. Next question is, how detailed is the integration with QSYS? Can it be completely controlled and monitored from there? Question for you, Christian.
I think the answer is we will not put the configuration, and this is what we have done. I mean, if you take a look at the plugin that we already have for the IPX amplifiers, that's kind of giving you a good guideline of what's on the list for the MXE5. So the setup and configuration, this will be done through SONICUE. The operation in the system, like changing settings or bringing back monitoring views or whatever, that of course is there. But tuning and EQ, this is something that you do from SONICUE. So as I said, the best example to get an idea of what it will be is to take a look at what we have for the IPX amplifiers right now. It's on the website, and that gives you a good part. I do
see a question. This question from Rainier asking, most stadium systems combine PA and VA applications. How about EN5416 certification? Do you want to answer that one, Christian?
Yeah. So our approach here is that the MXE5 MXE series will work together with EVAC systems, but not be a certified part of it. So what does that mean? That means that, for example, an MXE can handle all the background music, all these nice things that you want to do with the system while it's not in EVAC mode. Presensor or EVAC system, let's assume Presensor, will be the master, so to say. Yeah, and if there is the EVAC case, and only that's what is relevant for the EN54, then basically the MXE5 will be bypassed and not interfere with the EVAC system. So it will be combined, but it won't be part of the certification.
It plays very nicely with Presensor in that system for non-essential or non-critical. I say critical, I mean the emergency event itself. So when the emergency event gets flicked by the Presensor controller, it will turn off or divert away from the MXE and take over full running of the system. So the MXE is capable of being within that system from its normal everyday event application, but when the critical event occurs, the system doesn't need to be certified because it is not part of that evacuation system at that point. Okay. Next, is there a digital message player on board? The answer to that is no. There's no digital message player as such. Obviously, we can trigger to message players, but there's no storage on board for that system. The question of performance-based mixer, there's a bit of interest on that, I can see. Yep, it is coming. We can't give you an exact time frame for that, but it's not going to be, it won't be this year, but we hope that it will be pretty soon.
I mean, the nice way you saw a little bit the flexibility of the custom user controls. I mean, and you saw that we had already some templates created, like, panel with 3 faders or 6 faders whatsoever. It could actually, and this is what the architecture of SONICUE allow, is that we build 1 or 2 different mixers, and if there's one function that you would like to add, you take our template, you add whatever that function is that we forgot to add, yeah, and you have it. So that's kind of the power of it. It's not here is what you have and it's set in stone. It will be very flexible. It's just like, here is what we have if you don't want to spend any time. Yeah, if you want to do a little bit more, okay, you can modify it.
Is the GUI available offline?
I think we have to be precise. I mean, SONICUE works offline. 90% of my SONICUE webinars I'm doing offline because I don't even have enough devices around me. If we talk about the SONICUE Viewer app, the Viewer app will only show content when it is connected to the devices it's programmed for. So you will not see a level control if the device that should be controlled isn't even on. Yeah, so then there will be nothing on the Viewer app. On the SONICUE, the designer, the main application that you're using, of course, everything that you've done, you can also do completely offline. You can prepare an entire project, go to the project side, and just push everything onto the hardware.
It's worthwhile just stating right now that this version for MXE5 of SONICUE is not available online right now, but there is a version of SONICUE online for the amplifiers, and you'll be able to sort of use that and familiarize yourself with SONICUE when the software is available for this, which is SONICUE 1.2. That will be available online, and you can obviously then have a look at the MXE mixer and the panels, all the things that we were showing you here today. Through some and are we recommending a managed switch? So when expanding or adding a second MXE, would you recommend a managed switch?
A layer 3 switch makes absolutely sense, and it also makes sense to have. The reason why it makes sense to have a managed switch is simply that if you're running Dante audio and stuff like that, it makes sense to separate audio traffic from control. Yeah, because otherwise it gets a little bit flooded. Which, by the way, is the reason we have this control port on the back of the MXE5. This is nothing else but a filtered port that doesn't have the audio, but only the control.
Question, are there some simple wall controllers for web browsing apps or controlling? Sort of two parts to that question. One is that a simple wall controller. Yeah, we have that actually on the roadmap. We are looking at that. That's not something that's going to happen immediately. We have to develop this over time. Few things went into that, but yeah, we are looking at a more simple wall controller.
But Ethernet controlled. I think the simplest wall control, and this might be, let's say, if we talk about some third-party control, 4 buttons, a volume control whatsoever, like an RDL panel or something like that, this of course works with the GPIOs that we have on the rear of the MXE5.
Correct.
And as you saw before in the system logic, you could use this MXE5, this wall controller, to do quite complex things even inside the system. Yeah, so it cannot just be a recall of a preset or the unmute of a certain channel. It could also do a different activity in a different device. Yeah, so this GPI on the MXE could mute or unmute a channel, but it could also change speaker setting in an IPX amplifier at the same time. Yeah, with this little OCA controller we showed you, because you can add multiple and combine multiple chops. So pretty powerful.
The touch screen, the touch panel, TPC1, can it also do Wi-Fi? Is the question.
Currently not supported. So that means there is hardware for it, but there is certain reasons why we took that off. So, I mean, it needs PoE, and the connection So right now we're not planning to use that as a Wi-Fi control. Maybe down the road, but not for the near future.
Okay, and when will it be ready to ship is the question. It's a question from Australia.
There. This is the very long way, right?
it's a long way here. I might be close, but I can't help you with the extra shipping. So the answer to that is that we will be taking orders and be able to ship it at the end of the month. But for installations that require the software, we can certainly work with you to get a beta release. I know that we internally don't like using that word, but a short-term release to make that system work for you while we wait for the final tested and confirmed versions of software. So definitely able to do that. Any iAndroid, iPad apps in plan, Christian?
Sure. I mean, what you saw on these panel designer, the panel control, basically, just a side note, I mean, our touch panel also operates on an Android system. So there are plans, not for this release because we only can get so much into it, but going forward, we will have this SONICUE viewer app, so to say, will also be available for Android and iOS devices. So it's not that you can make, whatever you saw in the design, you can do for faders, button, knobs, whatsoever. This will also be possible to be used on an iPad.
Yeah. User access can be controlled on TPC1 ? Via password. Can you set a password to the TPC1?
Yes. So a control panel, a control panel which could have one or multiple pages, which could reside on the touch panel controller or on a computer, can have a password, PIN protection that not everybody can open and play around with it.
Yep. Indeed. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining. I think we're going to have to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for your questions and your participation in the meeting. Please jump online. We know that there is Infocom is not on this year in the US, but we are doing a bunch of seminars and sessions for Infocom. For details on that, please hit up our social media or our websites for more information on the time. There is an MXE session dedicated, a SONICUE session that Christian is taking. Christian, what time is that session?
This is a little bit late. I think it's 10 o'clock. It's next week. Let me go. Just checking the calendar. Sorry, guys. Used to be there. Too many screens open today.
That's all right. So if it's 10 o'clock, then
it's next Tuesday. So before you go to bed, if there's nothing good on TV and you see a little bit more on SONICUE, I will be showing what we will have with 1.2, which will include the MXE, but also all the other goodies that you saw next Tuesday. But this will not be the only one. This is just part of our, let's say, Infocom presentation package, and there will be more also on better times to suit Asian and European markets, of course.
Yeah, indeed. All right, I'm going to thank you all for joining. Please hit up the website, have a look at those session times if you would like to join us for the Infocom sessions. I hope that this has been very informative for you. If you need any more information, please contact your local dealers and distributors in your regions. This webcast was going out to all of Europe, Asia, and Australia, Oceania. So please hit those up. Thanks again for joining. Thank you, Christian, for being a panelist here, and thank you to the team that put this together.
Thanks to
everybody. Thank you very much, guys.
Have a good day. Thank you. Talk to you then.
Bye.
Bye-bye.